Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 64 of Petey's awesome guest panel. And man, is this going to be an awesome one indeed. Now, before we introduce tonight's guest star tonight, let me tell you exactly who this man is. This is the man in 1996 who co-starred Space Jam with NBA legend Michael Jordan. This is the same man that gave us legendary characters like Ren Hoik, Stimpson J. Cat, Zap Brannigan, Philip J. Fry, Professor Hubert Farnsworth. Oh, hell, I'm going to even say his minor characters like Raggy Angelo from Johnny Bravo. Not only that, this man has done it all. This man, in addition to that, this man is an award-winning voice actor, as he has won Behind the Voice Actor, I believe 6 consecutive straight years in a row for his best male lead vocal in a television series for his work on Futurama from 2012 to 2016, I believe. If not 2015, I could be wrong. And lastly, a gentleman that I could say his name in conjunctions with the terms looked up to. My guest at this time is the legendary, the iconic, and in my opinion, a guy who should be in a voice acting Hall of Fame. And Entertainment Weekly has said about this man in 1998, the modern day Mel Blanc. My guest at this time is Mr. Billy West. Billy, how are you today, sir?
What a drum roll.
It's an honor, sir. And this might be this is my third time interviewing you. I've interviewed you before in high school, as part of a school project I had to do, and I interviewed you on a show in 2013 called Cloverleaf Radio when I called in.
Ah, well, I hope I was nice.
Oh, you were an absolute awesome man, and still are.
Cool.
And this one is so near and dear to me to do this interview with you, sir, because now I have my own platform. Years later, I finally have my own podcast. I'm finally interviewing a man I looked up to in the voice acting industry. You, Rob Paulson, Dan Castellaneta, Maurice LaMarche, Sue Blue, who I had on my show, Pat.
All my buddies.
Yep, and of course, and someone you worked very well with, and I bring his name up every single time I mention him in a voice actors episode, and that is the legendary Phil Hartman, the late great Phil Hartman.
Yeah.
And
he was so wonderful.
We're going to talk about Phil later on, but before we get into that, though, I have some preliminary questions. Sorry, voice acting, and the first question is: how did you get your first start into voice acting or radio as a whole? Take me there.
Well, I was a freak when I was a kid, and I recall at a very, very young age taking a potato masher when I was about 3 years old and standing it upright in a window and looking out and talking about the snow falling outside. I always had a thing for broadcasting, I guess, and even at that young age. And then one time we ordered a microphone. You could get it with a couple of cereal box tops, and it was a little circular microphone with a grill on it. And we ordered it and we got it, and it was broken, of course. You're supposed to be able to attach it to the radio so you could talk through the radio. But I didn't give a shit, you know? I mean, it was broken, but just being what it was good enough for me. My imagination could take care of the rest of it. So that's where that stuff started. But I was a kid that was on the autism spectrum, but I was treading out noises and making voices and, you know, doing all kinds of stuff. Nobody knew what to do with me. My aunt told me that I was a weird kid. And, you know, nobody did know what to do with me. I hated school. I used to get physically ill, the thought of even going to school. So, because it was tough for me, I couldn't get my mind around anything. I couldn't tie my shoe properly. I couldn't tie a necktie. I still have trouble buckling a seatbelt. But ask me to do a fucking Fran Drescher impression. That's autism.
You nail any impressions you do, sir.
I'm still seeing this banner that's stuck in the middle of your face.
Oh, you mean this thing that I...
No, it's on my end. I was trying to get rid of it earlier, but I can press got it and it'll probably go away.
Well, are you able to...
It says leave meeting or got it.
Press got it. See what happens.
Now it's gone.
Okay.
Now I can see you.
Awesome. Another question I had to this is actually from a fan of yours, Julep. Julep asks, was there ever a role you did where you were allowed to improvise and write jokes? And if so, what were some ideas that you would have to enhance a scene?
It just depends. I mean, those kind of things happen in the moment. I was not a staff writer, um, but they always welcomed ad libs after you fulfilled the objective that the writers laid out for you. Um, there is one joke that's in the show that I actually wrote, but I wrote it inadvertently. We were at a table read for Futurama, and it was, a oval shaped table, really big, and everybody's name tags were in front of each seat, so you would know where to sit. And I grabbed mine and I looked at it and I said, Billy West, what kind of a fake, phony, made up name is that? And the writers were sitting right there. And so a year later, boom, it made it into the script.
I think I remember. Was that Silence of the Clamps from Futurama?
Something like that, yeah.
I remember.
But I mean, I said that at the table read, and they were right there, tuned in.
Yeah. And I also want to know, sir, as a voice actor, are there any a type of preparation techniques or tips that you would give to a voice actor or actress that has a scene where it requires them to do something like that shows a lot of emotion, like where it's screaming or crying, like etc.
You got to be ready to take off like a rocket at any given moment. I mean, you can prepare for roles. I know that actors do. If they're going to play some psychopath, they might run around all night screaming and all that. I don't believe in that. I think somebody snaps their finger, you should be ready to fly. And I've always been like that.
Yeah, I mean, I used to always say that Billy West was the king of expressions because every time in Ren and Stimpy, whenever you screamed as Ren, it's like the excitement, it's like believable. You believe like this kind of thing. It's like it's not like a script. It feels like this type of thing is really happening. You feel the emotion.
Well, that was I mean, I poured it on. I knew what he was supposed to do. And it was like I wanted that to come from the deepest cavern of hell and as close as I could approximate to it. And that's why you got what you got.
I think there's a Backstreet Boys song. I don't know, but there's a laugh in the beginning of the song, and it sounds just like Ren's. I don't know if they use the same exact audio of Ren's, but it sounds just like it's. The song is called "Larger Than Life."
They might have. I don't know. Sometimes people grab stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I wondered this too, like growing up. Were there any like differences in working with like certain animation companies? Did they have like their own certain rules? Like did Disney, Fox, Warner Brothers have their own specific rules to follow?
No, it wasn't so much the companies. It wasn't the identity of the company. The differences came between directors. Each director had different style, a different way of wanting to do things, and they varied in their attitudes and their artistic vision and requests that they wanted of their actors. That was the main difference. It wasn't like if you went to work for Disney, you got to come in there, with a lollipop and mouse ears. I mean, it wasn't like that.
That's true. I just wasn't sure if like Disney like is like the only thing you can't do is curse.
Well, you're not. I mean, you're not supposed to really do that anyway, unless the network is cool with it. But I don't know. I mean, I never much thought about that. Yeah.
And also like with the techniques, you know what I don't know if it was Roger Bumpus or Pat Music that told me this, but one of them told me that a method to help with like screaming in part of a role is to drink hot tea.
It's very what?
To drink hot tea, and when you have to
hot tea.
Yeah, when you have to do a role that requires screaming. That's what one of them told me.
Well, it's different with each person. I think everybody has their own way of dealing with their instrument. I'll go to the hot tea and stuff like that when my voice is totally plowed, like from screaming and yelling. It's exhausted. I mean, but I don't do it before I'm gonna do stuff or during. It's like afterwards to repair.
I understand.
Yeah.
Like I think the most time I seen you scream on Ren and Stimpy, where I was concerned, where like I think Billy's voice was just like thrown out. Like was when you did that rant, like in Mad Dog Hoik, when you were screaming at Stimpy, like when you're saying "I like Darren." Like
Yes.
that was one time where I felt like I think did Billy throw out his voice box when he screamed, because he was screaming really loud when he did that.
Um, I just they kept telling me to amp it up, keep amping it up. I mean, I would do it, and then they'd say, "No, you got to really pour it on more than that." So I just, as usual. I mean, I gave it all I had, and it was supposed to sound unhinged and raggedy and crazy.
And you did an excellent job, because you made a believer out of me when I watched it. Um, the next question I had too, because according to the commentaries in a Simpson episode, Kirk Douglas, when he guest starred in one episode of Simpsons, he said he hated wearing headphones because it hurt his ears. As a voice actor, do you prefer wearing headphones or not wearing headphones when doing voiceover?
I would prefer to wear them because you gotta. I like to hear every little nuance that I can listen to. Um, Without headphones, you just have to trust that it's doing what you want it to do, how it's being picked up. But I have to hear it to know if I'm landing, stuff is landing where it's supposed to land as far as my aesthetic goes. Um, I think, yeah, I would rather. I mean, I was starting to lose my hearing a couple years ago. I was probably from playing rock and roll when I was in my 20s, like playing with 400 watts of amplifier and, blowing off my high end in my hearing. And it finally came home to haunt me. And I thought there was something really wrong because I couldn't hear what I was doing. And I was getting reticent. I was backing off, and I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? So I went and got a hearing test, and it turned out that I needed hearing aids. So as soon as I got them, I was like, wow, now I can hear things again. So I felt totally confident, that I was able to keep doing what I did.
Oh. And of course, I wanted to ask you this too. Did you have a particular favorite one-time character from any cartoon you ever did voiceover work, and you were like, man, I really love this character, despite the fact he's only going to be here one time?
Um, Yipes. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Every part, every time you get to do something, it's an adventure, and I love it equally as anything else that I've ever done because I'm a journeyman. I mean, I come to work on stuff, and everything is of equal importance to me. I don't favorite one thing over another. I mean, because I've been very, very lucky to have the kind of work and the material that I've had to deal with. So I would always give 1,000%. So it was hard to pick anything that was a favorite. I can't think of a character. Maybe once on Ren and Stimpy, there was a ghost, and he was a hapless ghost. He couldn't scare anybody if his life depended or his unlife depended on it. And he was like, I'm going to scare these people. Just watch, and he was supposed to be very dull and very lackluster and boring. And that voice underscored the fact that he couldn't scare anybody or anything.
I remember that episode. I remember there were two Ren and Stimpy episodes where, like, and I'm not saying this in any bad way. It's actually a good way because it brings back a lot of memories. Where you made me cry, Mr. West, in a good
Yeah.
way. Yeah, I cried in that episode of Haunted House because I felt so terrible for that ghost. All he was just trying to do was just trying to haunt somebody. That's all he wanted, and I felt so bad. And them playing, I think them playing Claire de Lune did not help either.
Oh, well, that never helps anything.
And the one time you did make me cry, I remember I was a little boy. I had tears in my eye in The Littlest Giants when Stimpy's crying, writing the letter, "I'm never coming home," and then
Oh,
I cried.
he wouldn't stop crying.
Like me, I,
Yeah.
I I cried when I watched that scene.
Yeah, it's because you were into it. You wanted to believe it. You were your belief was suspended.
Yeah.
I mean, your disbelief was suspended, the suspension of disbelief, which is why you love a movie so much and that it means a lot to you, is because you were immersed in it.
And you have the thing, Billy, that not many voice actors or even actors have. You have the ability to connect with an audience.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm thinking to myself when I was a kid, and just thinking about like your work and like the admiration I had for it, it's like the way, the charisma, the way he tells a story. It's like, man, this is awesome. And the way you always tell a story, you're an amazing storyteller with any project you do.
Wow. Well, I thank you for that. I, that's what I always aim for. You're not sure who likes what until you get feedback later on. Like with Ren and Stimpy, I had no idea that I was in the middle of a cultural phenomenon. You can't know those things.
No.
You can't know if something is going to be like the next big thing while you're in the middle of doing it. So with me, I mean, it was just like always 1,000%, no matter how I felt.
Can I tell you three of my favorite one-time characters you did?
Mm.
Of course, Mr. Holloway on King of the Hill. Love that character, especially when you had JR, JR.
Yeah. Yeah. That
I
was
wanna-
based on a voice that was very common to me. I used to hear it everywhere because I grew up in Boston. And these guys were, they were regular fellas, and they were not pretentious in any way. And they were matter of fact, and they got excited, and this is the amount of excitement that they had, you know.
that character I loved. I also loved your Raggy Angelo character. Ironically, you and John DiMaggio shared a scene together way before you did Futurama in this episode of Isle of Misfit Toys, not Misfits, the Isle of Mixed Up Toys in Johnny Bravo, where you voiced Raggy Angelo and you did a character. He sounded like this. So we meet again, Jeremy. So you're missing that arm and leg I tore off you? Like, I just love your accent you did for Raggy Angelo.
I barely remember that. I barely remember doing that.
How about, of course, the one you did on Drawn Together, where you voiced three characters. You voiced Stimpy, the mall security guard, and Popeye.
Right. Yeah, I remember that one.
Oh, I remember
And Jess Harnell worked on that cartoon with me.
he did, yeah, and James Arnold Taylor, which everyone would say was like, it's like, he's like like the style that he does is very similar to yours. Like him, Tom Kenny, those guys, they have styles very similar to yours.
Really? I love both those guys. I mean, I'm in awe of my contemporaries. I hold them all in the highest of esteem. Each one, it's like musicians. You can't say one saxophone player is better than another because you're talking styles, and everybody's got their 1-2 punch that they specialize in. And that's the way I look at it. Each one of it. Tom Kenny's got his 1-2 punch, and James Arnold, Carlos Alzraki, Maurice LaMarche, Debbie Derryberry, you name it, all of them. Tress McNeil,
Dan Castellaneta.
Dan Castellaneta. I mean, he's just he's a marvel. And believe me, I love and respect these people so highly. And it's just like, when you walk into a room and those people are there, you gotta really be on your toes, because you all want to work together to keep the bar off the ground. You want to make everything as unbelievable as it could be.
Very true.
Yeah.
And my whole family is a huge fan of your work. My sister loves
Thanks.
your work on Ren and Stimpy. My father used to watch you on Howard Stern all the time back in the day, and that's actually
Oh boy.
my next question. What were your memories on working on the Howard Stern show?
I remember that I was going through a lot personally. I don't know if it ever showed up on the air. I doubt it. But I was so chronically depressed back in those days that I felt like I wanted to die every day. I just didn't feel like I wanted to live, but I would go into work and go crazy and cut up, and then I would leave, and then I'd go home, and I'd be in darkness because I was living in untreated depression from birth, chronic low-level depression. And finally, when I got treated for it, things began to change for me. But this was when I worked in radio, and I was like, uh, I don't know. I would always be at the ready to jump, on anything that hopped up. A lot of times in that room, it was like St. Elmo's fire shooting through the furniture, and you just knew something was happening. It was electric. That I can say. We all got an idea. If we got an idea to do something, we'd all like jump on it and help each other put it across. Howard actually loaned me Fred and Jackie, which was like loaning me two nuclear weapons, like if I was going off in a character tear, they would both contribute to me. Like Jackie would throw in little punchlines and things like that. Not constantly, because you can't keep up with somebody's performing in real time. You lob them in, and we all worked to make the whole thing work. I think I have a feeling that they really didn't want me there, when I was getting ready to get out of there. I just get the feeling like they didn't want me to be there. And, and I wanted a raise. And they were like, talk to Franny, talk to Zoe, talk to Mel, talk to Tom, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, I'll see you later. I'm not staying in the part of the pool where people pee. Shame on me. I'm not a victim. I had no idea where I was going, but I left.
I just want to say, I wish I was around during that time, especially at the age I was right now, because if I was, I'd be there every day, helping in any way, offer my assistance any way I can help you, sir. If more like anything, like if you needed someone to talk to, that's definitely why I'm in the field I'm in now, because I'm a teacher assistant for special needs children. I just love to help.
Well, I'm still a special needs.
No. I wasn't saying you, sir. I was saying.
No, I know.
I just saying I just loved helping people, and if I was around during that time, the age I was now, I would say, Mr. West, sir, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here for you.
Well, I did have people, to talk to. I mean, I was married, and I would tell my wife anything that was bothering me. But it was such a whirlwind being on that show. It was like an avalanche of laughter every morning, and it was very cathartic to laugh like that. But there was just, there were some things that were happening there that were turning me off, and I, and they wouldn't give me a raise. So like I said, I just up and left, and I never looked back. It's been almost 30 years.
The show sucked after you left, to be honest with you. Like I was telling my dad, and my dad was very upset when you left the show too, because he loved your Larry Fine. He loved when you did Larry Fine. Can I hear how that sounded again, Billy?
Hey Mo, I pissed on my shoe. Why, you moron? I told you not to piss on your shoe.
Thank you so much, sir. That made my night. The next question I had for you, I could be wrong on this, because I was just based on the research I did though, and that was memories of your first animated series you did, Beanie and Cecil. Am I wrong on that?
Beanie and Cecil.
Cecil, pardon me.
Yeah, that was in 1988, and John Cristofalusi was the animator on that show.
Oh no.
That's where I met him. And then after that show folded, I mean, after 6 episodes, the show died. But then it turns out that was John K's MO, because that's as far as he could get with any show. 6 episodes, and then he'd shoot himself in the foot. Yeah, I didn't know what I was walking into, but
The next question I had for you was memories, of course, on your time at Ren and Stimpy, and talk about your audition for it.
The audition was, I made a couple of tapes. I was still working at the radio station in New York, and I sent them to Nickelodeon, and they liked them, and they wanted to hear a little more of this and that and everything. But when it came down to selling the show, John K came to New York, and he had me go over to MTV Networks with him, because he was going to go in and try to sell the show for real. with the women at Nickelodeon. So there was a closet up the hall from where he was going to go in. And we both ducked in there and set up a microphone, and I read both parts because he was going to present it at this meeting. I don't know, he waited to the last minute, but that's how he did things. It's like, hey, there's a closet, let's go in there. It was real Three Stooges kind of stuff. But he went in, and then when he came out, he said, congratulations, what you just did sold the show. And I said, great, fine. And then once we got underway, he decided he was going to do the Ren character, and I was going to do the Stimpy character. And I didn't give a fat frog's ass who did what, because I had a job. I'm going to get paid to do voices in a cartoon. I was happy. So I didn't care. But when he got fired from the show, they went back and said, weren't you supposed to do both voices? And I said, yeah, I guess, I don't know.
And you did, and by the way, you did him 100 times better. You did Ren 100 times better than John Kay did.
Well, it depends on what you got used to, like, what you were exposed to. I appreciate it. I did exactly what I did when I was asked to audition for it. I did exactly the same kind of things because I was told by him what he was looking for. Like he was a Chihuahua, since he was a little south of the border, and then he had these actors modes that he would get into, like Peter Lorre, or I'd like a couple of hamburgers and make them raw. And then there was like Kirk Douglas kind of stuff in it. It's like, I hate criminals. And
Burl Ives, right?
And Burl Ives. Scarborough, shoot. I told you I'd shoot, but you wouldn't believe me. Why wouldn't you believe me? That's from Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And so those were the notes that I was given. And that's what I went by. But eventually I, in the end of the second season, I was doing both voices.
Yeah, I remember that.
Went for a few more seasons, or 2 more seasons.
I think it all started with the episode Monkey See Monkey. It was something with the monkeys with
something, yeah.
Because I remember you sang the song, I want to be a monkey, 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 monkey. Wait,
right.
Speaking of that, did you have a favorite and least favorite episode of Ren and Stimpy?
I guess the one I liked was the Christmas episode. It was Stimpy's first fart, was the Christmas episode. And I just thought it was hilariously funny that's how they would celebrate Christmas. And they would make the story about a little lost fart, hysterical.
I remember in that episode, all I could think of is you going, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
I don't care. I don't care.
Oh, that was a great episode.
Just like a little kid. Kids do that.
I won't lie to you. My favorite episode, aside from Stimpy's invention, because it was the introduction of Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy,
right,
was Fake Dad with Kowalski.
Right.
I love that one. Especially the ending made me cry too when he was saying goodbye to Ren. It was very heartwarming.
Well, there was moments, they knew how to write really good stories, and they also knew how to direct a cartoon artistically, how to shoot it as if it were a movie, and the same kind of emotional hooks made it into that style. A lot of cartoons don't even bother with that type of direction,
sadly.
Yeah,
you're right. And of course, memories of working with Michael Pataki and the late great Gary Owens.
I loved Gary Owens. I loved him tremendously, and I was a fan of his from when he was the announcer on a show called Laugh-In in the 60s. And he played the quintessential, radio announcer, and he had a big sonorous voice. And I absolutely loved the guy. Michael Pataki was a character actor, and he was kind of like a bohemian, he was kind of wild guy, nutty. And and he'd be screaming and yelling, and I'd come in, and he'd be doing this character, George Liquor, and I'd come in the studio and I'd see him laying on the floor, like wiped out, like, ah, ah. You know, he felt like he said he felt like he had to rally to die because John Kay would beat the shit out of him, like directorially, just like more, louder, crazier. And John had a reputation for ruining actors, you know, like wrecking them. I think he might have taken some particular delight in it, but he couldn't do it with me because thanks to my shithead father, there ain't a narcissist on this planet whose head I can't bounce off the sidewalk and do a 3-point shot with it. You know, my dad used to beat the shit out of me day and night because he thought I was stupid. I was on the autism spectrum. So, I mean, here comes this John Kay that thinks he's going to rough me up. And it's like, are you kidding? I went through 100 times worse than this before I was 10 years old.
Wow. Well, you answered my question about memories of working with John Kay. That definitely covered that one.
Yeah, everybody's got basically the same memory. It's like, yeah, it was what it was, you know.
It's like working with John Kay was like, yeah, him.
Yeah, him.
That guy.
Nitwit.
Yeah, he's nobody. Well, look at it in hindsight, though. Billy, you went on to become a legend to not only all '90s kids out there, especially me, but you are a Nickelodeon legend as well because you are on 2/3 of 3 premiere shows that debuted in 1991, which was
Right.
Doug and Ren and Stimpy and Rugrats. You weren't on Rugrats as a main character, but you were on those other 2 shows as a main character. That's why
Yes.
I always thought of you as a Nickelodeon legend.
It was like lightning happening. I was still working in radio. I wasn't particularly interested in radio. I mean, I was having fun and everything, and I was getting a chance to explore and play and find humor in this, that, and the other thing. But I knew there was no future in it for me. You know, Howard was an anomaly. Nobody makes any money in radio unless you were like Rush Limbaugh or
Larry King, right?
yeah. I mean, every disc jockey you hear on the radio, he's here today, gone later today. He's got to go to a new town in like Denver and learn the team and, you know, and learn the local this and that. And then he's gone out of there. It's called riding the bus.
It is.
Yeah. You know, there's like no job security and they don't make much money. They really don't. So I figured, you know, what do I want with this? And besides, I didn't get into show business so I could have a boss and wear a tie and punch in, you know, like, I was late. I was 5 minutes after 8. Oh, no. You know, I mean, I never thought like that. So radio, you know, I did want to get something going in cartoons in the advertising world, commercially, you know, so that I wouldn't have to work at that job forever.
I understand.
Yeah.
And one of the shows that I mentioned, Doug, of course, you were the main character. You voiced Doug and Roger Klotz on it. Doug Funny and Roger Klotz.
Yeah.
Memories of working on, of course, Doug, and how did you get the role?
Let's see. I was auditioning for different Nickelodeon people at the very same time. I remember auditioning for, you know, Ren and Stimpy, and Stimpy was a big kind of brain dead cat, you know, happy, joy. And then there was like the craziness of Ren, you know, I shall kill you, you fool, you cretin. And then here's this Doug, the sweet kid, excuse me, 11 and a half year old. And it was totally different from Ren and Stimpy. It was very gentle, kind of sweet, and had a nice set of morals that they were espousing. And I thought about Doug, you know, and I remember when I was 12 or 13, I did a lot of fantasizing. I could never partake with other kids because I had too many weird little problems, and I just kept to myself. You know, I lived in this imaginary world. So much like Doug, you know, I didn't keep a diary, but I used to, you know, just look at like a girl from across the room and start fantasizing about being on a boat somewhere, or, you know, whatever a little kid's romantic dream is. Um, and I auditioned for him and I got him. And then Roger was based on a real kid that I knew, a bully in the fourth or fifth grade. And he was a real pisser. He was pointy, you know, he'd point his finger into you, and his hair was pointy, his nose came to a point, his shoes were pointy. He was like this jagged little boy that was you know, a little rat bastard. Who knows? Those kind of guys just wind up dead or in jail.
Wow.
But he was like, you know, an antagonist. And so, but now they're like 26 years older now, 27, and you never know how they're going to turn out. You know, dear journal, today I blew up a courthouse.
Oh boy.
You know, and then it's like, you know, got to go to court, and Judge Roger Klotz, order in this court. Oh, look who it is. It's Funny. I knew I was going to see you in here one day, Funny. Oh, you're going to jail, Funny. 1,000 years in jail. You get guilty written all over your face. It's even spelled wrong. And Doug goes, oh no, behind bars.
Mr. West, you're making me feel like a kid again. God bless you. Memories. I gotta ask you too. Like before I ask my next question too. Like that, I can honestly tell you, dude. I felt like a real life Doug Funny. I was that nerdy kid in middle school that had a bunch of Roger Klotz back in the days that would haze and bully me back then. So I could totally Doug. And I totally relate to that, sir.
Well, you know what it is. If you're sensitive and you have any kind of artistic ability, those monsters smell it immediately and they want to hunt you down and kill you like an animal. They don't understand it, so they're afraid of it. Except one stupid guy, because I could draw. Before I got into music, I was able to draw. And this guy knew that I could draw stuff, and he was bothering some people, and he was bothering me one day. And then he goes, wait a minute, you're not going to draw me, are you? You know, he was actually afraid I was going to make a comic strip out of him. I said, no, I would never do that. You're the coolest guy in school, you know? And it's like, oh, good man.
Sweet.
And yeah, stupid.
Sorry, what'd you say, sir?
No, I mean, they were just, you know, abjectly stupid.
Yeah. Memories, of course, working with Connie Schumann and Jim Jenkins.
Yes, Jim is a great guy, really, really creative. I enjoyed working with him very much. He was a great director, and everybody loved him. Connie Schumann was just like as cute as a button, just adorable as her character. And
Fred Newman?
Yeah, Fred Newman. I loved working with him. He's so delightful, filled with surprises, you know. And all of them, Doug Price. Yeah, I just I'm trying to think.
Who voiced Mayor Bob White?
Oh gosh, that was a guy who went on to host Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? I forget his name. Oh, that's awful. I can't remember his name.
I remember.
But Rebecca Lish was a voice actress that played Doug's mom and his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Connie, right?
Yeah.
I remember, I just remember there was two dynamics I absolutely loved on Doug. I love the dynamic that you and Fred Newman had as Doug and Skeeter, but I absolutely love the father-son relationship as Joe Valentine and Skeeter Valentine. I always marked out every time I saw Joe Valentine on screen. There's one scene in Doug Rocks where you just totally lit the room on fire in a very good way when Skeeter dumps a bowl of potatoes on his head and she's like, "Hun," and Joe's wife goes, "Hun, try doing that thing where you count to 10. You go 1, 2, 10. And like I was remember thinking about when I saw Billy doing it, I'm like, oh, he is nailing this. He's like, all right, mister, take it outside. You're like, but Dad, I'm grounded. Well, you're ungrounded. Move it, mister.
Yeah. Befuddled fathers. My dad was not as nice as Joe Valentine. My dad was a psycho and a drunk, and my mom took me and two younger brothers up out of Detroit, Michigan one day and right to Boston, like in 1963. Saved our lives, you know.
That's good to hear. I'm glad because you're. Yeah, I mean, if you're not an inspiration already, sir, you are now even more now. What you just said. Of course. The next question I had was memories of shooting the last Nickelodeon episode of Doug, which was Doug Graduates and Doug's Bad Trip, and the episode ended with his family finally pushing the car up the mountain, and we finally get it fades to black as we see a whole view of their countryside that they visit.
You mean Bluffington?
Bluffington. Well, yes, the desert area of Bluffington.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, you know, they played with different moods artistically, and the scripts were one thing and the dialogue was another, but the look of the show, I thought it was a nice little world, you know, from what I saw. The places they hung out, the school, the honker burger, the relationship they had with the band, the beats, you know, I mean, all that was great.
It was, and that leads to the next question too. Like we go from Nickelodeon Doug to, of course, Disney Doug. Now you didn't take part in this, and I was curious to know, like, what was the reason? What was the main reason that you declined to take part in this? And were you approached by Disney to reprise your voice?
Yes, I was, but they wanted me to do more work than I was already doing for less money than I was making, and I told them. You know, basically the same thing I told the Stern Show. Thanks, but no thanks. I was gracious, you know, I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just said, I wish you nothing but luck. I wish you nothing but the best, you know.
You did the same thing also when we got that god awful Ren and Stimpy adult cartoon party.
Well, I never got involved with it at all, period.
I don't blame you. And that 3 or 5 episodes, whatever they had, was the shits. The shits.
Thing was, is I knew what they were going to do, and that's why I turned it down.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they had too much freedom, which is it's detrimental to artists when they're able to do anything and everything they feel like doing, that there's no oversight. It's almost like, wow, we have the technology to be able to put the arms on the Venus de Milo now. What are we waiting for? And it's like, why would you do that? Because you can. You know, you wouldn't. You're not supposed to. So I mean, they could do anything they wanted, and they had too much freedom. So it was so like, it was gratuitous, self-indulgence, skewed sexuality. You know, just craziness, really. And it was trying to be cute, and it wasn't.
No, and I think it would help getting Ralph Bashki to do the work, and that didn't help either.
No.
Yeah,
No, just a bad idea all around.
It was a bad idea from a very
bad fit.
Now, I'm not gonna say Disney Doug sucked, but I'm just gonna say it wasn't the same as what you did. Because if I'm gonna watch Doug, I want to watch Billy West do it, and nothing against the guy that did Doug in Disney, and of course Chris Phillips who did Roger. But if I'm gonna watch Doug, I'm gonna watch the legendary Billy West do the voice of Doug, the originals.
Well, you know, I mean, I had nothing. I didn't think about it. You know, I tried to watch it once, and I just said, "Yipes!" You know, I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this, or you know, and I couldn't watch it because I was too, I guess, distracted by some of the performances. They were fine, I guess, but you know, as far as my own choices, I would say to myself, I would have gone right, you know, and they went left. And yeah, but you know, I mean, I get over that after one afternoon.
Likewise,
I tried to watch, but I just said, you know, it's not my part of town anymore.
Of course, Billy, you've done many voiceover works for mascots, including the Red M&M and Buzz the Honey Nut Cheerios Bee. Talk about your audition for. How did you get the role for these two iconic characters, these iconic mascots?
Well, if you have an agent, they get the call from ad agencies and producers, and they say, do you have anybody that you can send over that we're looking for, and they give you a description, they send scripts out, and they just want to see people. And I would go on any call. I would audition for anything, didn't matter. If I was right for it or not, I didn't care. I just said, just let me keep auditioning for anything. I don't care.
Oh.
And they were doing this character, Buzz B, for Honey Nut Cheerios, and they wanted a high pitch, and kind of voice, and I wanted to make him cute enough so the kids would like him, and so he had kind of almost like a giggle, Honey Nut Cheerios is irresistible, and he would go irresistible. Yeah.
The same applies for the red M&M too?
Yeah, the red M&M was just like basically a wise guy me. Like, yellow, I told you to clean it up. Have you ever eaten me? Just
one of my favorite M&M commercials of all time would be the one you starred in, and of course, I think it was you. It was I forgot what his name was. The guy from Spider-Man who voiced the yellow one. What was his name?
Oh, that's J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
The great J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons and the late great Phil Hartman, where he voiced Chocolatate.
Yeah, Chalky Bar.
Chucky Bar.
Yeah, and he melts in the sun and stuff. I remember recording that commercial with him. That's when I think I first moved to LA. And I don't know if I had started doing Futurama yet. I don't think so, but they were going to use him for Zap Brannigan, I believe.
I remember.
And then when he was dispatched, they just kind of let that go, and then somebody was writing, and I guess the storyline came up. They had the good one to introduce this character, Zap Brannigan, and they asked me if I would read for it, and I said I will, and I'll do like when Phil Hartman and I were talking, we talked about our mutual love of big dumb radio announcers from the old days, and he spoke my language. I mean, we liked the same kind of stuff, and so I thought, that'd be perfect with this self-serving, lout who loves the sound of his own voice and the sound of his big stupid ideas, and
I still will never forget your first line as Zap Renegade. Love labors lost in space, where you go, these new uniforms are pretty snappy, eh, first officer?
Yeah, pretty snappy.
And when I heard you say that, I literally thought that was Phil, but and then I realized I thought Phil actually like filmed like that episode, and then you took over the role. Like when I was a kid, I didn't know this until like later on that you did the role full time for all appearances for Zap Brannigan.
Yes.
Were you there when Phil auditioned for Zap?
I don't remember him ever auditioning for it. I think that they thought of him.
Oh, okay.
They were thinking of him, and it never got past that stage.
I see. And I remember when he passed away, I bawled my eyes out. There was three voice.
Me too.
There was three voice actors, Billy, that I just bawled my eyes out when they passed away. Phil was one of them. Dana Hill was one of them. And what was the name of? I'm trying to remember what her name was, but Doris Grau. When those three voice actors and actresses passed away, I just remember bawling like a kid, like a baby at the time.
Yeah, they were bright lights, and when those lights go out, it makes you sad.
Yeah, and of course, I definitely want to ask you too. Like, we're getting into the Futurama questions now, and that is, of course, your audition for Futurama, and how did you get the role for the characters that you played, the legendary characters we know?
I remember going over to Fox, and they had a huge casting call, and they were seeing people one at a time, and there was about 50, maybe 60 people in the room. It was a big room, and I saw people like from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Ryan Stiles, And I said, oh, Jesus, I better just leave now. This guy's going to mop the floor with the audition. But I stayed, anyway, and I went in and I read the characters they asked me to read for, which was the professor and Zoidberg. And they asked me if I would read for Fry. And then it turns out I didn't get the Fry role. I got Zoidberg and the professor. And I said, that's better than I ever imagined. I figured I'd be lucky to get like an incidental character once in a while or something if they liked me enough. But they loaded me up with those roles. And then they had an actor playing Fry, and they decided to go a different way. And then they came back to me and asked me if I would do it. So I did, and I made Fry sound like I sounded when I was 25, which was, I was all nasally and complainy. I played music, oh man, I broke a string. Now what am I gonna do? I was just like, whiny. And I thought that would be a perfect voice for Fry, is what I really sounded like when I was 25. And I wanted him to be a project for Leela. I wanted to give a character a dynamic that would resonate. I made him kind of needy, especially around her. He's trying to impress her, but he's also very needy, and she's strong and decisive. So they were a good fit for each other.
Yeah, and it was a great love storyline, though. I think the Leela and Fry storyline is probably one of the best romantic storylines in an animation series, because it's very very, what's the word I'm talking, it's very long term. It wasn't like a short term thing, like I can't give a good example of one, but like theirs actually went from like Fry actually having an interest with Leela from season 1 until like the very end of the season.
Right. Well, you don't want to run out of story.
No. And there's two characters I love. They're minor characters on the show that I absolutely love, and that was Whale and Fungus. When you were singing, "Shut up and love me."
Oh, right.
Love me.
The Wailing Fungus group, yeah.
That was awesome. And also, what's the name of that the character you play where he sounds like Gonzo? Where you're like, I understand, my body, and then one day, I hope you pick up the phone.
Oh, that character was called the Ball of Light. And they asked me what I wanted to do. And I remember when I was on the Stern Show, I used to imitate a friend of mine. I wasn't really sounding like him. I was doing a caricature of him, but he had that perfectly spent party voice, like from somebody who was screaming at a concert all night or at a party. And the next day he'd be all like this, so it was so fragmented, fractals and chaos, and I figured that'd be a great voice for a ball of light, without them having to doctor it electronically.
And it was, and of course, memories were working with the Futurama crew: John DiMaggio, Lauren Tom, Katie Segal, Phil Lamar, Maurice LaMarche, David Herman.
We laughed and laughed so hard all the time because everything was just so delightfully funny. Katie is, such a pro, and she's a great singer. She invited us to come and see her band one night, and I was so thrilled. And John was a stand-up comic, so he's naturally funny, and he's riotously funny as the characters that he does, particularly Bender. Maurice was a stand-up comic and an impressionist. And the things he brings to the table are just priceless. And same with Dave Herman, same with Phil Lamar. Lauren Tom has just this delightful delivery, and it's like a perfect situation. And then there's Tress MacNeille,
Yeah,
who is the grande dame.
Oh, I jokingly used to say, and I have jokingly say that Tress MacNeille is much like how you're the Mel Blanc of the modern day voice acting business. I always thought Tress MacNeille was the modern day June Foray of the voice acting business.
Yeah, I'm sure she would be very complimented by that. I was very lucky. I got to work with June Foray a bunch of times, and I sat there in awe, of this little woman could do so much with her voice, even though she was getting older. But she was just one of those rare birds, you know, like Mel Blanc was, and some of the Hanna-Barbera guys, Don Messick and Dawes Butler.
Oh yeah.
They were all my heroes, you know. they lit the way for people like me. You know, I wasn't the only one sitting there watching them. There were other people, and now we all work together.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I would also put I take that back. Tress MacNeille and Sue Blue tie in with that Jude Foray category because Sue Blue, who I had on my show 2 years ago, much like you, sir, can actually range the voices. She could run the gamut with voices too. She could do the voice of like an infant baby to like a 90-year-old woman.
Right. Well, I was always under the impression that you should be able to do those things. You know, you should have every tool in your belt, every trick in the bag of tricks, and it should keep expanding because you want to keep working. You want to keep being able to say, I can do that, rather than, gee, I don't know about that.
Did you have a favorite or least favorite episode of Futurama?
I like the Devil's Hands, or Idle Playthings, because it was sort of an opera.
And you dominated that whole opera. You were singing as Zoidberg, Professor Fry. I remember, and I'll forget this too, where you literally were going back and forth as Zoidberg and Farnsworth. You're like, I can't believe the devil is so unforgiving. I can't believe everybody's just at living.
It was tough to get through that melody for me, because I had to do a couple of different characters, but it was a Ken Keeler melody. Ken Keeler wrote that piece, and he's, you know, he was one of the writers, still is. And they were very complicated melodies, except once they were done, they sounded natural and simple, but it was tough for me to follow in a couple of different characters.
Yeah,
but I did it, you know.
You did, and I'll never forget the ending line where you went, "Take my hands, you evil metal dork." I just love how you hit that line. I'm like, man, this Billy is really nailing this. It's like, I'm feeling this right now. I'm feeling this opera.
Well, you know what? I wanted the characters to resonate, like they could be people that you actually knew rather than cartoon characters. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Like
you can't know a cartoon character in real life, but the characters on Futurama you could know in real life.
Yeah, because they're like, they can relate to real life situations.
Well, Matt Groening actually said, The Simpsons is a cartoon. And he said, Futurama is real.
Yes.
And I knew exactly what he meant, because I never tried to play something like a two-dimensional cartoon. I wanted it to have depth and resonance, and, you know.
I totally get what you mean. And you spoke of course about the devil hands are idols play thing. I want to get your opinion on they consider it the 4 series finales of Futurama, which were the episode I just mentioned, Into the Wild Green Yonder, over Counterclockwise, which they said was considered a series finale because they weren't sure if Comedy Central was renewing in 2011.
Right.
And of course, the actual series finale, Meanwhile.
They were all masterpieces as far as I'm concerned. And everybody thought, you know, that's it. You can't top that, you know, and they continue to do it. And we're recording the new show, you know, as we speak. And I don't know. I mean, it's just wicked funny, and you know, you're not going to be disappointed. It's really great.
You're right. And of course, definitely want to get your opinion on this. As you know, you co-starred in the 1996 movie Space Jam.
And I got to work with Michael Jordan too, Doc.
I can't wait to ask this question to you. The first question, of course, I had was, Space Jam was the first, you know, I think the first real, like, half animated, half live movie since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I was curious to know. I'm sorry, you were saying, sir?
I think you might be right. I'm not sure what came before those, but that sounds about right.
I was just curious to know, sir, like from a voice actor's perspective, though, like the process of like your memories of shooting Space Jam, and from a voice actor's perspective, doing it as Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd?
Well, I never was in front of a camera, not on a scene, not on anywhere. What we did was recorded in a recording studio. What they had was a guy acting with Michael Jordan wearing a green screen suit. And the guy would recite the lines that Michael Jordan had to respond to, say it was Bugs. You know, and they weren't doing the impressions, they were just shouting, they were doing the lines
Oh,
that we were recording in the studio so they could match them up. And let's see, yeah, I mean, I just thought that Michael Jordan was really great. You know, he had a personality.
and that was my next question too. Like, you answered it for me already, but that was, did you work directly with Michael Jordan? And if so, how was he like working with him?
Well, I didn't work with him directly, but I did meet him after we were done. There was a rap party on the Warner Brothers lot after we finished, and everybody was there, Ivan Reitman, you know, and there was a big crowd there and celebrities, whatnot, and Michael Jordan is surrounded by people. I mean, every second there's people calling his name and da 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 da. And it must be Harry. But he does know his sports agent's voice, who was a guy named Ken Falk, I think. Maybe that's what his name was. Maybe Ken Ross. I forget. I'm horrible. But anyway, he calls Michael. He goes, Michael, and Michael knows that voice, so he turns around and he goes, "This is Billy West." And Michael Jordan reached over like 6 people and shook hands with me. He was massive. Yeah, I was thrilled.
Did you have a favorite line that you did in Space Jam,
Um,
or any line in general?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I love the classic ones, you know, like, of course, you know, this means war.
Oh, my favorite one you did on Space Jam, and I'll never forget it. And I'm actually gonna say this too. The reason I get so, I mean, like, one of the reasons I get so excited when I hype up the show in any of my episodes I do, I can
Yeah.
honestly say that you inspire me to do that. Like, whenever I see Billy West, you know, emoting, I'm like, I gotta do this for my show. Like, I gotta get excited, I gotta get pumped, I gotta get engine. And one example of that would be in Space Jam when you were screaming at Michael Jordan as Bugs when you were talking about the aliens invading, and you were like, what I'm trying to say is, we need your help.
Yeah, that was a full blast scream. And if you want to see, Mel Blanc could do that better than anybody. He was frightening. And there was this old Jack Benny TV show. And if you look up an episode on YouTube, it's called, it was the Jack Benny Christmas episode where he's trying to get a gift wrapped in the gift wrapping department. And Mel Blanc is the head of the gift wrapping department. And Jack Benny drives him nuts. He keeps opening up the thing and said, I forgot to write someone's name in there. You think you could open it up for me again? And he goes, yeah, sure, okay. Opens it up and he says, great, we're all set. And then he comes back later. You know, I hate to bother you. And Mel Blanc was getting more and more frazzled. And so the last pass, you got to watch it. It's the biggest scream of the world. Jack Benny comes back and goes, oh, clerk. And he goes, now what? Now what?
Oh, I gotta check that episode out.
Yeah, you do, because you'll be hooked on it. You'll be stuck on it going, oh my God, I can't believe that somebody could do this.
I'm gonna YouTube that as soon as this interview is over. I gotta YouTube that. Of course, one of my favorite characters that you voiced was on Cat Dog as Rancid Rabbit, and you also voiced Mr. Sunshine and Mr. Randolph. Memories, of course, working on Cat Dog and your audition for those respective characters.
I remember auditioning and sitting with Tom Kenny, waiting to go in an audition, and he was auditioning for Dog, and Jim Cummings got the voice of Cat, and then they gave me some incidentals. Yeah, the Rancid Rabbit voice. It was just this miserable guy. It was based on an actor named Joe Flynn, who used to be the captain in a TV show called McHale's Navy, and his name was Captain Wallace B. Binghamton. And he would go, "All right, you sea pirates, what do you think you're trying to pull here?" And Mr. Sunshine, since I just thought it was funny that his name is Sunshine and he's dour, he's like
a Debbie Downer.
Yeah, he's a total downer. And I remember that kind of like that bored waspy voice, of a guy with tons of money that's just unimpressed by everything,
Oh man, and did you have a favorite or least favorite episode of Cat Dog?
I'm trying to remember them. I like the ones that had huh?
The ones with Rancid Rabbit in it?
Well, no. Some of the other actors, like John Kassir, was in it.
Oh.
And Maria Bamford.
Oh, she played Shriek.
Yeah, I like the ones that she was in.
Carlos too. Carlos was also in.
Carlos Alzraki. He was great.
My favorite episode, I'll never forget it too. It was the Taco Depot episode where they go into the taco place, but Rancid Rabbit is the manager and he's trying to kick Cat Dog out, and you screaming as Rancid going, "Cat Dog!"
Screaming at them to get out. Yeah. I don't remember a lot of those episodes because you know what it is? I don't watch television. I mean, I know it sounds pretty haughty to say something like that, but I don't watch TV much. I watch news and information stuff, but I can't tell you what's on TV at night. I don't know. I decided to remain pure. They always tell voiceover people, watch as much as you can. And why? So I can get polluted, I want to be as original as I can possibly be. And you get influenced by stuff by having this constant input. I don't know, maybe it works for some people, but for me, not really.
No, it works for some people because I can totally relate to that. Of course, memories of working with of course, this is a different environment now, but working with Matt Groening and David X. Cohen.
Yes. I'm in awe of Matt Groening. I've always been in awe of him. This endless flow of ideas and character ideas and stories and premises. It's pretty amazing that somebody could be like that. And I was thrilled to be able to work with him. David Cohen, I love. He's the funniest guy. He just hellaciously funny, and he's such a good director, and he gets the best out of us,
So it was definitely an improvement from John Kay's vision, right?
Yeah. All that stuff was nonsense.
Totally agree. And of course, memories of working on Crank Yankers. You played two characters, of course. Mushu is one of my favorite, the Asian rapper, and you played a couple of kids playing a crank call at a Chinese restaurant. We like, yeah, can I have the poo platter? Oh, can I get that with extra poop?
Yeah, right.
I remember because it sounded just like a little bit like Doug.
Well, that was Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla did that show.
How did they do that?
That was their show.
But how was that process done? Did they have you near a phone and they had you call somebody using a voice? Like, how would that work?
They recorded us, and then they filmed the puppets, but they would play the soundtracks that they recorded, and the puppets would do what the soundtrack was asking for. What the soundtrack was, they did it to the track, and then they filmed it.
Oh,
they had the vocal stuff already pre-done.
And here's what I was curious to know, because the IMDb says this, but I just want to confirm by you if this is true or not. Did you voice Confucius in Crank Yankers or no?
Confucius?
Yeah, they said you voiced Confucius. I wasn't sure if you
I
did.
might have. I know that I voiced Confucius in a show called Hysteria, which was a WB show.
I really want to get your opinion on that and also Toonsylvania.
Toonsylvania, I worked with Bill Kopp, and I enjoyed that show very much. There was a segment on there. Let's see, this dead kid. He's dead. His name was Fred.
Fred dead.
Yeah, and his uncle was in an urn, his ashes, but the uncle talked, and it was really, really crazy. And Brad Garrett was on the show, and he played a big Frankenstein-like character called Phil. That was a great show. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was. I loved watching that like on Saturday mornings. Like I remember that used to be on every Saturday mornings. It was one of those Saturday morning blocks. And back in the day, I loved those cartoons. They were so fun.
Yeah.
The next question, of course, I had for you, working with Mike Judge.
He I liked Mike Judge very, very much. He called upon me to do that character, that Boston character. I guess he knew I was from Boston, and that's what made him think of it. But it was Burt Reynolds was involved with that episode too, I think.
Huh. Yeah, he was. He was MF Fatterton. Because I remember
Yeah.
you're like, maybe I'll have Fatterton over there by my mint julep.
Yeah, I wanted that Texas experience.
Oh, and I like how the jokes were so clever in that show. He's like, the MF stands for, and he goes, my friend.
Right.
They cut him off. That and I would definitely want to get your thoughts on. You worked on the Oblongs too, as George Clister.
George Clymer.
Clymer, pardon me.
That was Bob Oblong's co-worker. No, it was his boss, I think, George Clymer. And then he had a co-worker that I played. This kind of like, all the characters were deformed in some way on that show, which was, it was weird. One kid had two heads, and it was nutty. Let's see. Yeah, George Clymer was Bob Oblong's boss, and that was Bob Oblong was played by Will Ferrell.
What was he like?
He was great. He was very nice. He was, down to earth.
Gene Smart.
Yeah. Smart, but I mean, just real professional. Just came in, did his job.
Oh no, Gene Smart.
Oh, yeah, she was great. She was friendly enough to me. I mean, and then there was Lee Delaria, who was a comic, and the Sklar brothers, they were comedians, and I worked with the great Pam Adlon.
Oh yeah, Bobby Hill.
Yeah, she, God, I mean, if I could have like one of the loves of my life, it would be her, because I just respect her so much. Yeah, she's funny.
She is. I loved her on Rugrats. I loved her on King of the Hill, Recess. She ran the gamut too with the amount of stuff.
Yes.
I just have a couple more questions before we conclude, sir. One of the questions I had for you was, there was a memories on. Let me see, where's that? I had it right here. Oh, there it is. Memories of shooting the crossover episode of Simpsons Futurama, the 2014 Simpsorama episode.
We recorded with a couple of members of the cast. Dan wasn't there. There was someone pinch hitting. Let's see. Marge was there.
Oh, Julie Kavner?
Julie Kavner was there. Dan wasn't there. It was me and John DiMaggio. And we just recorded as much as we could, and then they added the other people later.
Oh,
It was fun. It was just, it was a good session. It was real professional.
so
Yeah.
was Harry there, or Hank Azaria?
No,
Okay.
no, I think these people are up, they get other things going on in their life and careers, and they all can't be in the same place at the same time. That's happened to us on Futurama.
Oh, did you work with Hank when he was when he was Uncle Zoid?
Um, I'm trying to remember if I did or not. I I think maybe I did. I can't. I'm really trying to remember. It's so long ago.
And one line I absolutely love is Zoidberg, though. You have a lot of great lines. With Fry, you say, this exposure to radiation is making me thirsty. As Zoidberg, you say, young lady, get me a sandwich by the dumpster. My favorite Zoidberg line of all time will always be, well, one of them will always be when when Zoidberg looks in the camera in the episode That's Lobster Tainment, and he goes, "Good morning, Mr. Vice President."
Well, that's real ass kissing.
And then you're like,
Good morning, Mr. Vice President.
then you did the same thing later on. You're like, the president is dead. Congratulations, Mr. President.
um, that's such a great character. He's fun, and I think the reason I think he's so funny, I mean, the thing that I like the best about him, he's a doctor and he's poor. I never heard of a poor doctor. If that doesn't say loser, nothing does.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the Decapodians. Like that episode when he ate the flag, Taste of Freedom. His parents were so crude to him. He's like, sure, you can be a comedian instead of a doctor if you want your parents to roll over in their grave. And then,
Well, yeah, that's the guilt thing. They were playing up the old Jewish family stuff.
I was like, come on, man. And then they did it to him when he was older. He was like, sure, you can be a doctor instead of a comedian. If you want to, quit your dream of being a comedian.
Yeah, right.
And then one of my favorite episodes that you did at Zoidberg was the Emmy Award winning Roswell That Ends Well.
Yes, that was fun.
Oh.
My favorite line in that was Fry and his uncle, where they're his uncle Enos is and it was like a Back to the Future thing. Something had to happen or Fry would just disappear in the future.
I remember.
And then that meant that his uncle had to marry this girl, this waitress at a cafe. And it didn't look like he had any interest in her. And he said to Fry, "Hey, Fry, did you ever get the feeling you was going out with girls because you're supposed to?" What?
You get that, what? Don't ever say or think that again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because he would disappear.
You were just amazing in this episode. Even like with Zoidberg, where you were like, President Truman, you're like, "Are you coming on to me?" He's like, "I'm not here to know." And then again later, we're like, "A buffet. Oh, if only I brought my wallet with me." And then they go, "It's free," and you let out the squeal. Woo!
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget when you said, as Zoidberg, when Fry threw the gas bladder, you're like, "The president is gagging on my gas bladder. What an honor." Oh, man.
All good lines. All good lines from the show.
Absolutely. One final question, and then we're going to start to wrap up here. And that is, if there's any character that you can revive, any character at all, it could be anyone that you have played, and bring them back full time, who would it be?
I don't know. I think we're going to be doing Ren and Stimpy again, so I don't know, like if there's extra characters that will be introduced. I don't know. I'm always ready for anything. But I've done, I can honestly say I've done everything that I ever really wanted to do. As far as other people's roles, don't you wish you had done that? And it's like, no, I was very fortunate to have the type of work and the richness of material that I had to work with.
And yeah, and one character I would say that I would bring back, though, and he's one of my favorites that you did, Sven Hoik.
Sven, yeah.
I is Jordan, you are Sven.
8, your team.
100!
Yeah, that was a good character.
It was, and that episode was amazing though. Like, ironically, that episode went back to back with Haunted House.
Yes.
Um, Now before we conclude, Mr. West, because my show is a open forum, this is the part where you could say anything, you can hype, promote anything you want. The floor is yours, Mr. West.
Well, in lockdown during the pandemic, the couple of years, I wasn't going out much, and I was recording a lot of stuff from home. So I kind of stuck in my room, and I started to write, and I was writing and writing, and I wound up writing like 22 chapters of an autobiography, which I'm getting artwork together for, and and hopefully a publisher on the line sooner than later. But I just thought it was time to write down all kinds of stuff. And nobody wants to read about how good somebody's life is going, like, wow, I did this and I did that. No. It's boring. It's like, I think people want to know about the crap you had to go through, like as a child. It was horrific, miserable. And and I chronicle all that stuff. But of course, then again, it's like the spoiler is that there's a happy ending, as far as I know. I'm not gone yet, so.
I understand. Let me just say too, sir, that I'm going to say this, that you are not only one of the most iconic and legendary voice actors in the world, and my personal favorite too. Like, if I had to name my top 5 or top 10 favorite voice actors of all time, I always put you at number 1. Always.
Oh, thank you.
Always. And
thank you.
not only that, but thank you for you're not only an inspiration to me, and I waited a very long time to say this. I mean, I didn't have the chance to say this when I interviewed you the first 2 times, but now I could say it now because I have this podcast. And this episode is very special to me because I followed your work for a very, very long time, and I was thinking to myself, if I ever one day at a Comic-Con meet Mr. West, if I ever have the pleasure or privilege of ever meeting Mr. West, I will definitely give him my gratitude of how much he inspired me growing up. I know you get this.
Thank you.
I know you get this a lot, Mr. West, but you are the voice of our childhood, especially 90s kids like myself. And in addition to that, if there's ever anything you need, you just let me know. And
sure.
And of course, one of the couple things I want to do before we conclude is you deserve this for after years of the memories you gave me as a child watching. Thank you for doing this interview. You deserve a thank you, Billy. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Billy. Not only that, but I also want to give a special thank you to Glenn Schwartz for making this happen. Thank you so much, Mr. Schwartz, for making this happen.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz.
And of course, thank you, Mr. West. Let me just say this. You have this incredible gift that not many voice actors, let alone actors, have.
Thank you.
You have the ability to make a 32-year-old fan and take them down here and make them feel like a 4-year-old again with those memories.
Well, all my heroes did that with me, the people that I grew up idolizing. I mean, and I actually did meet Mel Blanc once, and I just felt like I was that kid that sat in front of the TV, It wasn't a happy time for me, but thank God there were people like him around to make things better than they were. So I was very grateful to all those people.
And you're an inspiration and very influential on many people, including myself. Every time I do a wild introductory to all my guest stars, I'm not gonna lie to you, that's Billy West inspired, because that's energetic like Billy. What would Billy West do?
Thank you. What would I do?
And then I'm thinking like, well, Billy would entertain the ass off of everybody in the room.
Sure.
They say there's the old saying, don't meet your heroes. And I say to that, bullshit. I'm talking to one right now. I'm talking to one of mine right now. And
I've met most of my heroes. Everybody. I've met Les Paul, the guitar player. I was a musician, so those guys meant a lot to me. I met Jeff Beck, who was one of my heroes. I played with Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. I played in his band for a while, and he was one of my heroes. So I met Mel Blanc. I met Jackson Beck, who was the voice of Bluto in the Popeye cartoons, and like I was very, very lucky. And I was inspired and resonating after I met them. I said that I just met somebody that shook the world. In my mind, that's the way it was.
That's awesome. And you mentioned all
Yeah.
those people being your heroes. I waited a very long time to say this, but Mr. West, not only did I look up to you like in the voice acting world, but you are one of my heroes. And I've
Oh,
always
thank
wanted to say
you.
that. I
Thank you so much.
thank you again for this amazing interview. And
Great.
it was so fun. Thank you so much. I'm gonna send you a copy of this. And
Absolutely.
if you're able, like, are you able to follow my Instagram and Facebook? Because I'm gonna share it on the page. If you I can send it to you from there.
I'm on Twitter.
I can send that to you on Twitter if you like.
Yeah, it's at the Billy West.
I'll tag you in it because I have it's my page. It's PD's awesome guest panel. I'll tag you in it. I promise. But again, thank you so much for a wonderful interview, and thank you and have a
Thank you.
thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.